So Nicholas Kristof, who I don't generally pay attention to his articles. Some things he covers seem to be okay, but some seem to be quite dubious in many respects. But here he has gone to Jackson, Kentucky, in the Appalachians, and he writes, parents here in Appalachian Hill country. Okay, this is what poverty sometimes looks like in America. Parents here in Appalachian Hill country pulling their children out of literacy classes. Mom and dad's fear if kids learn to read, they are less likely to qualify for a monthly check having an intellectual disability. Now, how Nicholas Kristof knows this is unclear. There's no data to support this claim. There's not even, I think, there's one mention of this by a guy who runs a literacy program, saying the kids get taken out of the program because the parents are going to lose the check, according to this one person. Now, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But we've seen already this happen back in the 90s. Charlie Pierce wrote a great story on this, of the same situation where people were addicted to their Social Security disability check for their kids. And so they would feed them drugs to make them crazy. So they would appear to have some type of mental problem so they could keep getting these checks. And then based on the hearsay testimony of this one person that we know nothing about, this is painful for a liberal to admit, but conservatives have a point when they suggest that America's safety net can sometimes entangle people in soul-crushing dependency. Our poverty programs do rescue many people, but other times they backfire. Really? Really? You mean we don't have a anti-poverty program out there that makes people give people the capacity to eat food and support their kids and provide health care for them, that doesn't have some marginal quality of either fraud or disincentives or the money doesn't get to the people on time? You mean there isn't a perfect policy out there? Well, wait, I'm going to keep reading so that Nicholas can present it to us. He goes on to say, some people here don't join the military, a traditional escape route for poor rural Americans, because it's easier to rely on food stamps and disability payments. Holy shit, really? There are some poor kids who say, I don't want to go die in the military and kill people. Fortunately, I can eat because I've got food stamps and disability payments. What? We can't get these kids to voluntarily join the military because we give them some meager option in which to eat? Is that the argument from this liberal whose heart is broken? Well, why don't we just get rid of food stamps and disability payments and go and grab poor kids only and conscript them into military service? It's a win-win. Wow, this guy's really taking the easy out of some young people. Did Kristof actually talk to one of these young people? I mean, I would imagine it would go something like this. Yeah, I was going to join the military because I have no food, no money to eat. And then, of course, I got food stamps, so I didn't have to join. And Nicholas Kristof just looked at him and just... Anti-poverty programs also discourage marriage. In means-tested program like SSI, a woman raising a child may receive a bigger check if she refrains from marrying that hard-working guy she likes. Yeah, she may also refrain from marrying that guy who beat her, or that drunk guy, or that guy she doesn't like. So I guess the idea is that, she's not accepting her punishment for having a child. So instead of marginally coming up with a fix based on data as to how you would change that disincentive slightly, he just says the real problem is she's discouraged from marrying that guy. Just like that kid who was discouraged from going and killing people and getting shot at. God, what are we going to think of next? People being discouraged from going into a coal mine that maybe is unsafe working conditions? More than 1.2 children across America, a full 8% of all low-income children are now enrolled in SSI as disabled at an annual cost of more than $9 billion. That's almost the same amount of money that probably goes to fund Big Bird. What's the point here? $9 billion. I think people spend a multiple of that on Christmas decorations. These kids may never recover. A 2009 study found that nearly 2/3 of these children make the transition at age 18 into SSI for the adult disabled. They may never hold a job in their entire lives and are condemned to a life of poverty on the dole. That's the outcome of a program intended to fight poverty. Or maybe it actually helps disabled people. Now he writes theirs in capital letters to make a real big point here in this tiny paragraph 3/4 of the way through his piece. There's no doubt that some families with seriously disabled children receive a lifeline from SSI. But the bottom line is we shouldn't try to fight poverty with a program that sometimes perpetuates it. There's no anecdotes, there's no data, but this guy knows the bottom line. And the bottom line has nothing to do with some families. It's just a general principle. There's a danger in drawing too firm conclusions about an issue, fighting poverty. I'm no expert on domestic poverty, but allow me to write a piece about how disability insurance for kids is hurting poor people. I'm no expert on poverty. I'm not interviewed an expert on domestic poverty for this piece. I've not looked up any data points on domestic poverty for this piece, but I'm still going to write it. Because I did write in capital letters the word theirs. But for me, parenthetical, a very wealthy New York Times writer, a tentative lesson, yes, tentative. It's tentative, but you know what? Let's put it in ink. Let's write it out here. From the field, is that while we need safety nets, the focus should be instead on creating opportunity, and still more difficult, on creating an environment that leads people to seize opportunities. There's a ton of opportunity up in the Appalachians. Why, you could go and maybe stand guard at a pole of sludge as they rip apart mountaintops and pour poison into the ground. Or maybe you could be an asthma inhaler distributor. Then he goes, I tagged along with Save the Children to the mobile home of Brittany Hurley. Miss Hurley is 19, amiable, and speaks quickly with a strong Hill accent, so at times I had trouble understanding her. She says that she was raped by a family member when she was 12 and that another family member then introduced her to narcotics. She became an addict, and mostly to prescription painkillers that are widely trafficked here. She once aspired to be a doctor, but her addictions and rebellious nature got her kicked out of high school. At 16, she became engaged to a boyfriend and soon had his baby. I'm sure he was a hardworking man and could have supported the family and whatnot, but, you know, she decided to live in sin without him. Save the Children trains community members to make home visits to at-risk moms like Miss Hurley and help her nurture the skills they need in the world's toughest job, parenting. These visits begin in pregnancy and continue. I don't even know what. Okay, so Save the Children is doing good work in the Appalachians. So what we should do is cut disability. I don't want to suggest that America's anti-poverty programs are a total failure. On the contrary to being a total failure, they're making a significant difference. Nearly all the homes in Appalachian Hill Country now have electricity and running water, and people aren't starving. Well, maybe if we cut their electricity and running water, they'd go join the military so they could take a shower. Of American families living in poverty today, 8 out of 10 have air conditioning, and the majority have a washing machine and dryer. Nearly all have microwave ovens. Wow, they have almost $1,000 worth of assets, assuming they bought all this stuff new. I don't know what the point of that is, other than to say, like, look, they're fine. I hope that the budget negotiations in Washington may offer us a chance to take money from SSI and invest in early childhood initiatives instead. Well, here's an idea. Maybe if we continue to fund SSI, less people will go into the military, and then we'll save money on the military, and we can use that to invest in early childhood initiatives. Now, I'm no expert on anything, but I'm going to pontificate here. Look, there are no magic wands, and helping people is hard. One woman I met, Anastasia McCormick, told me that her $500 car had just broken down and she had to walk 2 miles each way to her job at a pizza restaurant. That's going to get harder because she's pregnant with twins due in April. At some point, Miss McCormick won't be able to hold that job anymore. Then she'll have trouble paying the bills. She has rented a washer and dryer, but she's behind payments and may soon be hauled back. I get a discontinue notice on the electric, she added, but you get a month to pay up. Life is like that for her, a roller coaster partly of her own making. You see, the making is that we don't know what her circumstances is, but the only thing we can tell here, assuming that she didn't purposely break her car, was to get pregnant. So she's paying for her sins. This is just disgusting. And how an editor at the New York Times doesn't say to Nicholas Kristof, hey, you realize you come off as the world's biggest D-bag writing this. I'll tell you, Nicholas Kristof, what he should be doing is writing his next piece about tort actions against editors. That's what he should be doing.